One thing that kind of irks me when it comes to entertainment is the constant wanting to compare artists to other artists, especially when they're just getting their feet wet when it comes to the entertainment industry, whether it's music, movies, television, or anything, sports, whatever you want to call it. And it really amplifies in this generation because of social media. Not so much back maybe when I was a child, because we didn't have social media back then. Social media did not really come into existence for me until I was like a early teenager, preteen, during the MySpace, Facebook days, which was around 2002, 2003. But at the time, it was just those two. I think you can throw Black Planet in there, but that was on its way out because of those two. And then the rest, like Twitter and Instagram and TikTok and Snapchat, came much later, like over a decade later. And then, the reason why, I'm talking about this is because there's always this comparison thing when it comes to legends and people who are up and coming. Now, in no way am I saying that The Weeknd is an up and coming artist, because The Weeknd has been making music for probably the last decade or so. But it's just that now he's really, really being pushed out there. He's been pushed out there. It's not like people don't know who he is and not familiar with his music, because when he first got started, he started doing like the mixtapes. He was more like an underground artist, and then he went more mainstream a little bit later. Now, keep in mind what I'm about to say in this video. It takes nothing away from the artistry that The Weeknd has or his talent. I've actually seen him live in concert before, because he came to my job and did a concert, and he actually sounds just as good live as he does on his records. He actually pretty much sounds the same. And one thing I always say when it comes to an artist, you always want to make sure that for me to become a fan of you, I have to see your performance live without all the extras to see how you sound. Because on the record, it's polished. Like, they can go and edit it in post-production to make you sound a certain type of way. And we need to see how you sound live to determine if I will like you and purchase your music or download or stream it or whatever the case may be and going forward. And I can honestly say The Weeknd actually is a pretty good artist, but he's not for everybody. I will say that he's not for everybody, opposed to the artist that is next to him in this picture, where for the most part, a lot of people like Michael Jackson, but even he wasn't for everybody. And as crazy as that is, but it is what it is. But I have these two right here because there's always been this comparison thing with Michael Jackson, and it's not just been The Weeknd, because before The Weeknd, they tried to do it with Justin Bieber, Justin Timberlake, Usher, Chris Brown, and even more recently, Drake. Now, the only reason we're going to let Chris Brown have a pass is because Michael Jackson told him and said out of his mouth that Chris is the next big thing. And of course, that spooked a lot of people, but it is what it is. And I can see it because Chris Brown knows he could dance his ass off. He has a little, he can hold a little tune too. I think that his rendition of This Christmas was very good. And I think a lot of people in this generation will listen to his more faster than Donny Hathaway's version, even though that song has been redone so many times. It's like one of the most redone Christmas songs of all time. But that's a credit to Donny Hathaway. But when it comes to dancing, Chris Brown is probably one of the most best dancers I've seen of my generation. And when I say my generation, I'm talking about in my age group, because if y'all didn't know, me and Chris Brown are the same age. As a matter of fact, we were born the same year in the same month, and our birthdays are literally a day apart. I was born on the May 4th. He was born May 5th. Same year. Crazy. And we're both and he's from Virginia, and I'm from Maryland. So there's we're literally a state apart, but he was more from southern Virginia rather than northern Virginia, because he's from a place called Tappahannock, which is more southern Virginia. But anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there. But they always try to link Michael Jackson, or saying that, this person is the next Michael Jackson, or is this the next Michael Jackson? Is this the next Michael Jackson? Listen, there is only one Michael Joseph Jackson from Gary, Indiana, 2300 Jackson Street, born August 29th, 1958, to parents Catherine and Joseph Jackson. Like I told you, I'm a big Michael Jackson fan. I could start naming a lot of stuff right now, but that's not the point of this video. Just like there's only one Drake, there's only one Usher, there's only one Weeknd, one Chris Brown, one Justin Bieber. Unfortunately, we have to acknowledge Justin Bieber in this because he's compared to them, and Justin Timberlake because he was even mentioned in this. But there's only one to each of them. And I hate that they compare him or try to compare them to him or say, is this the next Michael Jackson? What I hate about it is it doesn't allow the artist that they're trying to do the comparing to grow and be their own artist. Because I'm sure it's flattering to hear that you're being compared to one of the greatest, if not the greatest entertainer of all time. That's a flattering compliment. However, I'm sure that the artist wants to be in their own lane and do their own thing. Sure, they're going to take some inspiration from whoever they're being compared to, and that's flattering in and of itself. Like in The Weeknd's most recent song called Sacrifice, if you listen to it, he samples I Want to Thank You by Alicia Myers, which is a very phenomenal song of the 80s. And he actually, in my opinion, I think he samples a little bit of Thriller as well. And if you listen to the song and the beat, it kind of sounds like it has an 80s feel of a song, 80s type of song that you'll probably hear in a club back during that time. And even when he does it's a little dance move that he does when Michael Jackson does with his legs, where he kind of does the thing where he spreads his legs out. Like if you look at the Motown 25 special, you know what I'm talking about. He did it quite a bit during that performance when he did the moonwalk. But it's nice that people like I say, draw inspiration, but let these artists do their own thing, because to be compared to Michael Jackson all the time would mean that you have a lot of shoes to fill. That's a lot of pressure. And then it separates you from who you are as an artist. And then it almost looks like you're being a carbon copy of the person that you're inspired by, or people say that you're the next one of. They did the same thing with Chloe Bailey, of Halle and Bailey, and saying that is she the next Beyonce. Like, that's a lot of pressure for her to be compared to Beyonce, because despite how you feel about Beyonce, she's one of the biggest stars right now. So that's a lot of pressure on her. Just like they said that that singer Normani, they said that they feel like they don't know what lane to put her in, because it's like she's a little bit of Aaliyah, she's a little bit of Sierra, she's a little bit of Beyonce, but we don't know who is Normani. And that's what I'm talking about. Who is she? She's talented, a very good dancer, good singer, but when you get all these comparisons, it's like, who are you? It's almost like you have so many personalities, but we don't know who you are. But that also comes from the fans and people on these blogs that say, oh, they're the next this, they're the next that. Let them be the next who they are. Let them be in their lane. And stop saying they're going to be this, and they're going to be that, and they're going to be this, and they're going to be that. No, let them stay in their lane and hone their craft and build their own image up and do them. Let them have a sound. That's another thing. When you start to say they're like this and like that, then you take away the sound that they have. And then they go away from whatever sound that they want to make or have, and then they start literally turning into a clone of who you're saying that they remind you of. It's fine that you say that they're inspired by this person and that person and all that, and that's good and well. But when you start to do that, people will see that and say, they remind me of this person so much, I'm not going to listen to them anymore, because if I wanted to listen to this person, I would go listen to him. That's why I say when it comes to The Weeknd, if they keep saying he's like Michael Jackson, then in that case, I don't want to listen to The Weeknd. Let me just go turn on a Michael Jackson record to listen to the real thing. And see, artists back then, they had to be original. Like, there was no room to be a copy of this and that artist. There were probably some, but a lot of artists back then were original. They had an original sound, or they did their thing. They may have done something with their voice that someone else wasn't doing, or anything like that. They weren't trying to be that. They actually tried to do the same thing. As a matter of fact, I'll give you an example. And this is a perfect one. When Whitney Houston came out, everybody was blown away by her voice. A few years later, in 1990, when Mariah Carey came on the scene with Vision of Love, they immediately jumped on and say, is she the next Whitney Houston? And they tried to create a rivalry around that, because at the time, Whitney and Mariah were like the two best female voices in music, or the two recognizable ones. And they tried to do that. But like I said, the media and the entertainment industry is known to do that. And that was at a time, of course, before social media. But I was around during those times, so I remember hearing, that stuff. I was young, but I do remember hearing it. But I was old enough to remember it as well. But yeah, like I said, this takes nothing away from the talent that The Weeknd has. He has talent. He has he has a voice, and he's a good entertainer. But stop saying, is he the next Michael Jackson? Because he's not. And I'm almost certain that he doesn't want that to always constantly hear that, because I know that would probably annoy him. If I was him, it would annoy me, because it's like, I get that you're trying to compare me to the greatest entertainer that has ever lived and has walked the face of this planet, but I'm me. Listen to me. Listen to my music. Listen to my voice. Listen to what I've produced and what I've written, what I've created. But then, mainstream media will twist it up and say, oh, he hates Michael Jackson. That's not what he would be saying. That's crazy. It's great you're inspired and whatnot, but let this man do him. Let him be in his lane. That's all I'm saying. Michael Jackson carved out a lane that was literally for himself. He literally was in a lane by himself and left everyone else in the dust, literally. The Weeknd let him carve out his lane and do him. That's all I'm saying.